Hello everyone, today I'm here to review for you Star Wars Bounty Hunters. This is a brand new card drafting game for 2 to 6 players where you are trying to capture targets, complete contracts and maybe pick up a few crates along the way. Asmodee were very kind to send me the game so I can tell you roughly how the game plays and then give you some pros and cons to let you know if it's going to be a game for you. So how do you become the best bounty hunter in the Star Wars universe? Well, it's all about drafting. At the beginning of the game you're going to grab one card from each of the 4 piles. That's going to be your starting hand. The 4 piles are targets, bounty hunters, contracts and the Jawa market where you can get crates or droids. At the start of each round you're going to draw a new card into your hand, so you'll always have 4 cards and draw a 5th. Where you're drawing from is completely up to you. Maybe you want some more targets to choose from, or maybe you want some more stuff from the Jawa market. It's completely up to you which pile you draw the top card of and add it to your hand. Then, as with most drafting games, you're going to choose one card from your hand and at the end of the round you'll be passing the rest of them on to the next player. Now you do still have a choice once you've selected your card. You could simply just sell it and that's going to get you a single Imperial credit from the middle. You're just going to return that card to a discard pile in the middle. However, you may want to play them. So what do they all do? Well, targets, as the sort of name suggests, they're the targets that the bounty hunters you're playing also are going to be going after. Now you can start one of these confrontations off with a target or with a bounty hunter, but once you've got a target played down and you play a bounty hunter, they must match up. Now what you're trying to do with this is effectively looking at the numbers that are on the target card, you're trying to equal or exceed them with bounty hunters. Very rarely will you manage to do it with just one. You'll probably have to do it with a couple of bounty hunters, maybe a bounty hunter and a droid. Basically make the numbers equal what's on the target card. Once you've done that, either equaling or exceeding the 3 numbers, that's sort of a captured target. You will be scoring that at the end of the game. However, while droids don't lose you points, they will have cost you credits to play, bounty hunters that you play will be mostly losing you points from your score. So maybe the target, a Grogu, is going to be scoring you like 16 points. But if you've played some bounty hunters on it, maybe this one's -4, this one's -1, and they subtract at the end. All scoring is done at the very end of the game. So that's roughly what targets and bounty hunters are used for. Contracts are effectively a way to double down on certain points. Let's say it's a Chewbacca related contract. If you've captured a Chewbacca, it's going to be scoring you for that as well as the points that you'd earned from actually doing that capturing. And the captured targets can be used for multiple contracts. So let's say you've got that Chewbacca and another one wants you to have captured a Chewbacca and a Han, and you have, you'll score for both of them at the end of the game. The last lots are from that Jawa market. Now some of them are droids which you can pay credits for, and they are effectively then helping you towards getting a target captured without losing you points, but you've spent those credits. The other things that you can spend credits on are these crates. Crates give you points based on the value in the top corner, and whoever's got the most actual crates depicted at the end of the game is going to get 5 bonus points, which is a nice tasty little amount. The one twist with the Jawa market is that you are having to pay those credits that you're getting for discarding other cards, or maybe as a bonus for capturing a certain target. You can play a card that you don't have enough credits for, but you have to sort of reserve it, putting it sideways rather than just vertically like playing a normal card, and it means you can save it for later. And on a later turn, if you've got enough credits, you can then pay them back to the bank to effectively activate that card, maybe using the droid for something, or to activate those crates just to score you points at the end of the game. Much like with the draw stage, we're also doing this selecting a card from our hand part at the same time, and then activating it at the same time before passing the cards on. The game goes until one player has captured 4 targets, and at this point you do 2 more full rounds and then you work out points and see who the winner is. And well, that's how you play bounty hunters. You are, at the end of the game, scoring the number of points on your captured, and only your captured, targets. You're then reducing the points total by the bounty hunters that you've played with those negative points on. You're scoring points for the crates you've collected, and whoever's got most gets a bonus 5 points. And then you look at those contracts and see how many of those bits and pieces you've done, scoring bonus points for them. You top all that up and you see who is the winner. So let's dive into some pros and cons. And first of all, it's Star Wars. We have to talk about the sort of cool characters and the theming. The characters' choices here is actually quite an interesting one. I expected there to be, yes, like a Grogu, but I didn't necessarily expect Hondo, Cad Bane, and some of the slightly lesser known characters. I like that Omega is in there as well as a target, and that sort of stuff. It just means there's a decent amount of variety. Not everyone, though, is going to know who Zeb is, etc., or Kanan, because maybe they haven't seen the Rebels series. But I still, as a Star Wars fan, like that they've gone for a bit of variety and not just the generic, oh, it's only these characters from the main film. Theme-wise, well, it's not exactly the strongest theme, but you are collecting those bounty hunters to go sort of pile onto a target, and you can almost think of it as these bounty hunters trying to fight it out and be the one that takes them down and gets sort of the reward. It's interesting when you get to the contracts. Some of the contract stuff is maybe you want to have captured Omega with a crate. Now, kind of it makes some sense in your head thematically if you're like, okay, I've captured Omega and she had maybe a bit of important intel or something on her at the same time. Or some of the contracts are like 2 of the same character. Does that mean I've captured 2 Chewbaccas? Well, in my head, I just went, right, we've captured him, he's escaped, and we've caught him again. So you've sort of captured him at 2 different times. So the theme is there if you want to make it like that. But otherwise, it's not the strongest sort of thing. But you are capturing targets, and there's droids and Star Wars characters. The important thing is the drafting is really fast. You are doing all that drawing of cards from the middle, selecting cards, playing your cards. You're doing all that at the same time, which means it doesn't matter too much if it's 2 or more players. You're going to sort of just be as slow as the slowest person round the table. That really does help keep the speed of the game up, and, you know, drafting is all about those games that are quick, so that works really nicely. And there's an interesting twist on the drafting. In fact, in your first game, I certainly found, as a fan of drafting, we often were almost forgetting to do the draw card bit, because normally in a drafting game, you have a whole hand of cards and it gets smaller as the round goes on. In this, you're always getting 4 cards passed to you and then you're adding to it. And that's a nice twist, because it means you can impact what's in that hand. Right, you've drawn a hand but there aren't any targets and you want one, you can draw from the target deck, so you've at least got 1 card that you are hoping for. It also means I think you have much more impact over what's going on in a 2-player game. You can get to the stage where one of the hands isn't very good at all. Oh, it's got just loads of crates and maybe a contract that neither of us have got. Well, I don't necessarily want crates, so maybe I'll just draw another one and then discard one for a credit. And then you can sort of, someone will eventually have enough credits that they're going to want those crates to score big. And you can impact it. You can sort of not necessarily flood a hand, but if you know the other person's really looking for bounty hunters, and, well, at the moment, I'm kind of looking for targets, you can make it so that hand that you're passing on of 4 cards doesn't have any bounty hunters in it by discarding. 1 card at least. If there's loads, you can't, but you could at least maybe discard the best looking one. So you can do that sort of hate drafting-y sort of stuff that you can do normally, but it's almost a friendlier version because you can always choose to draw from 1 pile before you're picking a card, which maybe makes it a bit more family friendly. Star Wars Bounty Hunters is very much a light game, and you can actually make it lighter. You can remove the contract sort of deck from play if you want to make it a bit more of an easier experience, or at least not teach how those sort of contracts work. I think that's going to be aimed towards families with slightly younger players. where you could take that out at least for a couple of games and then introduce it. It means that game can grow with you. As you sort of have played a few times, you can add something in without really making it too much more difficult, but you've got sort of something you can take in and out. And the way you do that is at the start of the game, you remove that deck and effectively draw 2 bounty hunter cards rather than 1 from each pile. And I think that's a perfectly viable thing, and I think that's going to be great for families. I just wish there was something for me that adds another thing, almost adding contracts in while contracts are already in, if that makes sense. I personally, for it to keep hitting the table, it would need something extra rather than just being a game that I'd use to introduce to new gamers. But that's maybe where this is aimed for. Families and being that game that is your entry point to the market. One thing unfortunately I do need to highlight is, and they're not thin, but the cards aren't the thickest. They're not the best quality cards ever. I don't think it's the sort of cards that are going to like crinkle like paper, but I do think they will, as you're shuffling them, show marks over time. However, if you're playing a game like this enough that it's showing marks, it's also a case of, well, you've got some good value out of it and you've played this game a lot. But I do want to just highlight that they're not the thickest, nicest cards. They're a touch thin, but I still wouldn't refer to them as thin cards. I just wanted to bring that up. So if you're a family gamer looking for a very light drafting game on the sort of levels of a Sushi Go, maybe a touch lighter with that Star Wars theming that's playing in like 20 minutes, well, I think Star Wars Bounty Hunters could be for you. If you're looking for a bigger, bolder experience, then maybe go for something more like Star Wars Unlimited, which is a much bigger and awesome card game still in the Star Wars universe. But hopefully this has helped you determine whether Bounty Hunters is a game that should be added to your collection or not. And until next time, have a Star Wars brilliantly filled good day.